Hello and welcome to another Career Chat in the Life with Their Career Chat series. Today we are going to be talking to Rishi Joshi, a senior journalist with over 25 years of experience. He's been the stock market reporter with CNBC when CNBC started. He's been with Business Standard, Business Today, Headlines Today, The Economic Times, and The Mint. He reported the Ketan Parekh scam back in 2001. And more recently, he is the journalist behind normalizing the pricing of Covishield, which was overpriced when all of us were struggling with COVID. A journalist who works for social impact. Let's ask him what made him choose journalism as a career. What does he see as the future of journalism? What were the challenges in his life? What were the peaks? What were the victories? And what does he take back as life lessons as a senior journalist? And what is his advice to budding young journalists like you? Welcome, Rishi. We're so happy to have you in this channel, and we're so happy to understand your journey as a senior journalist. I know you've been in journalism for many years. So for our viewers, if you can give us a little bit of an overview of your career journey. So we have an idea, and then we'll dive into specifics as we proceed.
Okay, so I'm pretty ancient actually. I began in 1999. So I've been born and brought up in Allahabad. And, even in school, I was participating actively in elocution contests, debating contests, creative writing contests. And perhaps it was only logical that I would get interested in a career in media. What helped was that my brother made that jump first. My brother became a journalist before me, so I was aware that there is an option in media. I heard there is a career option in media for me. So my brother became a business journalist, and I realized that business journalism is also happening, it seemed. So I kind of followed him into media. Now, my brother became a business journalist in '94 after doing his MBA. That was the time when Dr. Manmohan Singh was launching his path-breaking reforms. And suddenly, business journalism became this cool thing to do in those days. And my brother already had an MBA degree, so it all made sense for him. Uh, so in '97, after I graduated, I started to explore options in media, what I could do. I was at the time very fascinated with TV. It so seemed like this cool thing. Prannoy Roy's NDTV had become very popular. His anchors had become celebs. Uh, but unfortunately, only Prannoy Roy could take only so few people, right? So many people, right? So I looked around for other options. I'm more fluent in English than Hindi. So the Hindi channels did not seem to be a logical fit. But I got lucky when in 2000, just a few months after I joined journalism, I began with a magazine called Business World. And after 3 months of interning with them, I shifted to Business Standard, where I was a trainee journalist for 2 months. CNBC launched in December of 1999, and I was almost part of the startup team there. So CNBC was my first break, so to speak. So I began doing stock markets about a year and a half as well for CNBC for a while. In fact, CNBC, was a very interesting journey. Yeah, right after I joined CNBC, immediately we had this scam. You may have heard of it, the Ketan Parekh scam, as it is called. Harsha Mehta and Ketan Parekh are these two brokers who have been accused of rigging markets, share prices, and they have been in jail for extended periods as well. So in 2001, there was a big scam, the Ketan Parekh scam. And I was the only stock market reporter for CNBC at the time because CNBC was scaling up gradually. Now they have CNBC has big market teams. In those days, I was the only one doing stock market for CNBC from Bombay. So I was a regular on Dalal Street. I used to go to BSE, NSE, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI regularly. So I got a chance to cover the scam very closely. In fact, I also used to interact with Ketan Parekh at the time. And I managed to break some pretty big stories at the time. One of it was that Anand Rathi tapes controversy. The then broker president of the BSE had spoken to the surveillance officer in the BSE quietly on the sly. Broker presidents were not supposed to talk to the surveillance officer because surveillance officers have market moving information. They know who's buying, who's selling. So Mr. Rathi made that call, the Anand Rathi, the then president of the Bombay Stock Exchange, he made a phone call to the surveillance officer to find out who is buying and who is selling. He forgot that all calls to the surveillance department used to be recorded. So I managed to get hold of that the taped conversation of Mr. Rathi with the surveillance officer, Mr. Arun Dhanavare, I think his name was. It's actually a set of sweeping changes in the stock market. The day CNBC ran that taped conversation, I think the very next day or within 2 3 days, the entire BSE board of directors was suspended, and the exchanges were corporatized, and BSE was corporatized, and so were all the regional exchanges. The regional exchanges was folded up. The regional exchanges all died after that. Once they were corporatized, once profit making became a priority and transparency became the buzzwords, all the regional exchanges just collapsed. Even BSE lost rapid ground to the NSE. NSE, which was more transparent, was always professional and a corporate entity from the beginning. So that actually seeded the downfall of the BSE, and the gap between the BSE and the NSE became bigger and bigger. Anyway, to come back to the point, so I did this. I got these Anand Rathi tapes in 2001, and so that was a very interesting part of my career. And I got this break when I had just started out. I was what you call a cub reporter, right? In fact, I remember Times of India carried the transcripts of the tape on the front page of the Times of India with my name. And in those days, Times of India was very big. There were only two English channels, NDTV and CNBC. Times of India was a much bigger brand than all these TV channels. So I enjoyed my 15 minutes of fame when people recognized me and congratulate me on getting the Anurati tapes. So CNBC then immediately made me a stock markets anchor. So in August of 2001, on August 15th, I remember it was Independence Day. I shifted to Delhi, and I started anchoring stock market shows on CNBC. Then towards the end of 2002, I was getting bored with the predictability of the stock market shows. I was looking for fresh challenges. Luckily, India Today launched its English channel. So I've seen the TV industry evolve, from a very early stage. As I said, that when I began, there was only NDTV, and in Hindi, I think they had Z. But certainly there was an explosion in the 2000s, and I again benefited from that. So from CNBC, I went to India Today TV, where I was doing the morning and afternoon shows for them. I was anchoring morning and afternoon shows for them, and I was it was called Headlines Today at that time. It's now been renamed India Today TV. And after 2 years with India Today TV, I'm restless by temperament. So I wanted to explore new things. So I got a chance to work for Business Today, the business magazine of India Today. So I joined Business Today, and that was a pretty long stint. I think I was with Business Today for about 11 years. And after 11 years with Business Today, I shifted to Economic Times Prime, which was the subscription business of the Economic Times. At ET Prime, I was a senior rewrite editor, so I would rewrite the copies of reporters as they came in. And after Economic Times Prime, there was a very short but very interesting stint with a startup TV network called India Ahead. And I was again anchoring shows for India Ahead. It was a startup TV channel. I remember it used to come on 617 on Tata Sky. And now, when I started anchoring for India Ahead, then this COVID broke out in all its ferocity, right? Now here also I got to do some very interesting work. I remember on April 21st, 2021, Serum Institute, the maker of Covishield, they tried to raise the prices of its vaccine, of its Covishield vaccine. So it raised prices from 150 rupees to 400 rupees. So I remember on April 21st, just 2 hours after the price announcement came, I went live on air questioning the prices and pointing out that they are making big profits from 170% to 300% profits. And I argued that, these are exorbitant profits at a time when humanity is facing its biggest crisis. So I argued that they should sell it at, cost price, not make any profits. And I kept at it for 3 days. On the third day, the IMA picked it up. IMA picked it up, and IMA wrote a letter to the Prime Minister saying that the prices of these vaccines should be at cost price, and serum should not be allowed to make profits. Eventually, as it became bigger and bigger, the matter went right up to the Supreme Court. Serum was forced to slash prices from 400 rupees to 300 rupees. And later, from what I recall, Mr. Modi made Serum lower the prices from 300 rupees to, I think, 215 rupees. So almost prices were almost halved. So I played a pivotal role in highlighting the overpricing of COVID vaccines in 2021. Then after a year with India Ahead, went to Mint, which is the business newspaper of Hindustan Times. With Mint, I was a freelancer. I was writing opinion pieces for them, and I was making videos for them. So I was with Mint for about a year and a half. And since then, I've been on a sabbatical. 26 years of intense workout in the media business sort of took its toll. I was getting a bit burnt out. So maybe I'll take up some assignments again in the future. It depends on how challenging they are.
And I'm so glad for the break because without that, we couldn't have got you.
Hmm. Thank you
Yeah.
for the kind words. That's right.
So, what emerges very clearly is this very ethical and nationalist, something which is good for the people. The part of journalism which makes people's lives better. I think that story emerges very distinctly in your work, Rishi. If I may, see the trend from the very beginning. Either life landed it to you, when you were starting with the Harshad Mehta scam, to you then becoming the force who took it up many times, many years later with Covishield also. So, is that one of the zeals an aspiring journalist should have? Or what do you think first pushed you? That's first one. And the second one is, what are the other aspects of journalism that you can see in aspirants? So two parts to the question.
That's right. So, many people do join the journalism thinking that they'll change the world. And I know there are many skeptics around now, but I do believe that you can make a big contribution to how the part of anybody's journey. Very often governments are forced to react to what you're saying. And certainly, I also wanted to change the world in some way or the other. And I think on a number of occasions, I made a small contribution. Uh, so, so certainly, I mean, uh, that is one that part of journalism, right? That you can make a difference to how the world runs. Uh, but now, as I said, when I began in '99, there was not so much money in media, right? But now journalists are well paid also. It's not only TV journalists, even print journalists are reasonably well paid. Digital journalists are reasonably well paid. Even interns, when we used to begin, interns were hardly paid anything. But today, even interns, trainee journalists, they get some money to begin with. So journalism is a rewarding career on both fronts. I mean, when it comes to making a contribution to the world, and also when it comes to earning a decent lifestyle for yourself. Uh, both uh, both both of these uh, both of these are the two pillars on which our youngster can go forward, right? You can do path-breaking stuff. You can make a contribution to how the world runs, and you can also earn a good living for yourself. That was not the case, as I said, when I began in 1999. Till in the 90s, it was largely the newspapers which used to call the shots. In the 2000s, you had TV channels coming into being, and in the last decade or so, you had digital journalism coming of age. So essentially, if you see, uh, media offers plenty of opportunities both vertically and horizontally. By vertically, I mean, you know, you have TV journalism, you have print journalism, you have digital journalism, and now you have social media, right? Let's not forget social media. I have friends who make a living out of YouTube, for instance, right? If you become if you become a crowd puller, if you become a crowd puller on YouTube and you're getting a lot of hits, YouTube will pay you for the content you are generating for them. So social media is also a part of the options that young journalists have today. And I know that many journalists, I mean, we know of the bigger examples like Ravish Kumar and, Pune Prasoon Vajpayee, who are running their YouTube channels, and these YouTube channels get a lot of hits. So YouTube, social media is also an option now. So this is this is a horizontal growth, right? You have horizontally, you have many options. Then you have vertically, you have options, right? You have various fields, right? You can be a general political reporter, you can be an entertainment reporter, you can be a sports reporter, and then you can be a business reporter, right? Or you can be a business anchor, depending on where your interests lie. And in fact, business journalism probably pays more than political journalism today. So both vertically and horizontally, you have a lot of options in media today, right? And I mean, if you extend it, even cinema is media, right? Even cinema is media. So, and I've seen such incredible success stories. People who were totally confused and who had just joined media for a laugh are today doing so well. I remember, this is an anecdote. I'll just tell you, a few years ago, 5, 6 years, 6 years ago, in fact, more than that, 8 years ago, I'd gone to my niece's annual day function in Bombay. My niece studies in one of the better known schools in Bombay, and there I met my old colleague from CNBC. He was quite confused and was not supposed to be very talented, but he worked hard and he rose and rose. And today, his kids study in the best schools in Bombay. These are remarkable success stories in media. I mean, if you were to look beyond an Arnab Goswami or a Rajdeep Sardesai, who are very high profile, but there are many other big success stories in media. So the media landscape has completely transformed in the last, I would say, 2.5 decades. Since I've joined media, the media has completely transformed, and it's certainly a viable career opportunity for youngsters.
We were talking about how journalism is a well-paying career. So if you could also share some numbers for the people who are listening, and it doesn't have to be accurate, just for us to get a range.
That's right. Okay, so journalism is, as I said, is certainly a well-paying profession now. In the 90s, journalism would be called journalists would be called jholawalas, and the activists, left-leaning activists. That's how the world saw journalists. But today, all that has changed, and salaries have really soared and soared and soared in the last few years and decades. Perhaps what helps is that the two richest Indians, Dhirubhai and Gautam Adani, they both have now their own news networks. Mr. Ambani has Network 18, and Mr. Adani has NDTV. But even before they entered the ring, pay scales in media had really shot up, and it's a fairly well-paying profession now. For instance, if you were a trainee at one of these newspapers in the early 90s, you would be getting 3,000 rupees maybe. Today, even a trainee journalist gets a fair amount, maybe 10 times, maybe 15 times that amount, right? Maybe 20, 25,000, 30,000, maybe even more if you're lucky. That is when you're starting out, and your pay scales really shoot up as you gain in experience. So the media has certainly become a more lucrative profession. And in fact, when I started out, even I used to wonder whether a living can be made out of media. But now all that has changed. You can earn a living and you can do pretty well for yourself. Most of the people who started out with me are still journalists, or they have made enough money to sort of retire. I remember my boss at CNBC, boss Udayan Mukherjee, who had become a celebrity stock markets anchor at one point. He has retired and he settled in the hills. He's settled in the hills in Uttarakhand. And so certainly it's become a very rewarding career, and a career which can have a lot of meaning, because you know now that you are being well paid, you can also focus on contributing to, as I said, to how the world moves, right? To how the society moves. You can be an instrument of change, and that can happen. That can happen. Now it happens all the time, right? I mean, uh, everything revolves around media, it seems to me. Even elections are getting influenced by polls, right? Polls are very erratic, but you find that all sorts of media agencies are doing polls and trying to influence the way the public votes and thinks, right? So media is a lucrative profession, a well-paying profession. But as we were discussing that, AI has entered the ring. How AI will impact media is something that we have to wait and see. I think it's undeniable that a lot of job functions may not exist in a few years, right? For instance, there's something called a desk in media, right? The desk is are the people behind the scenes, right? We see the anchors, but we don't see the desk people who are sitting and briefing the anchor. It's like, in a movie you have a director, you have assistant directors, you have camera crew, you know. So similarly in media you have the desk which does the most of the job behind the camera, or even the stories that reporters file, the desk processes it. If you're reading the Indian Express or Times of India, the stories that you see on the front page, that's probably not how the reporters wrote it, right? That's not how the reporters wrote it. There's a strong team of rewriters who process the content. So what comes in and what goes out sometimes is radically different. Well, there's people are selfless people. They are selflessly contributing from behind the screen, right? Just as in the movies, right? You have the directors, assistant directors, camera crew, video editors. They're all contributing from behind the screen selflessly. They don't become as big as stars as Amitabh Bachchan or Shah Rukh Khan. But believe me, without them, Amitabh Bachchan and Shah Rukh Khan will not exist. Even in media, in our print and TV media, and even in digital media has become actually a bit chaotic. The quality standards are, not predictable. It's Digital media is a pretty heterogeneous sort of a lot, right? You have some websites which are very well run, some websites which are not so well run. In some of the websites, like I used to work for ET Prime, which was a subscription business of Economic Times. It was a digital website. So we used to lay so much emphasis on getting the stories right. I would very often completely rewrite the story of a reporter, right? So similarly in print, you have the desk rewriting and proofing copies of the reporters. In TV, the desk is constantly chatting with the anchor on the earpiece, right? You see the earpiece where somebody is constantly briefing the anchors. If the desk was not doing it, the anchor would have no idea what's happening in the world. Now, a lot of these desk functions will probably go to AI if AI was to be sort of allowed to run its course, because AI can do these things in a jiffy, right? You give the AI a copy to write, it'll do it in a minute. Whereas a normal human being would take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, sometimes it takes 2, 3 hours. The AI can do it much faster. At the moment, the problem for AI is that it is too erratic. The quality standards are not predictable. So there's no immediate threat to media from AI, but as AI improves, I think in the next 4 to 5 years, certainly there will be a big challenge to humans from AI. Many of the job functions as they exist may not exist. And if you see, it's not only media, the other industries too are bracing for this AI impact, right? Bill Gates was saying that, uh, after a few years, humans will have a lot more time. And so did Elon Musk said the same thing, that humans will have a lot more time after some time, after a few years, because the AI will be doing most of the jobs that humans were doing. So maybe, who knows, in the years to come, humans will actually have a lot more time. AI will be doing most of the job functions, and many jobs could be lost. Yeah, now many TV channels, for instance, are trying out these AI anchors, right? Not many, but a handful have tried out these AI anchors. And I saw some of those video clips, and the anchor looked as good as the as a you know as humans. So they can pass off as humans with probably 5 times the intelligence of a normal human. But all this is in a very all this is in the very early stages. At the moment, AI poses no immediate threat, I think, to journalists, but as the months and years, we're talking about months, I think, not maybe even years, at the pace at which AI is evolving, that there will be a real challenge to many of the job functions that humans do in media. Uh, Reporting is one aspect, one dimension of journalism that AI will probably be the last to storm into, right? Or who knows? We may have robots doing it, but that I think is probably many years down the line. Reporters may enjoy a longer lease of life in media than the desk people probably. But as I said, that's all in the future. Let's see how it all shapes up. There may be newer roles for humans, and so we have to, one doesn't have to be alarmist, but I think there's no denying the fact that media will be among those industries which will get impacted by AI in a significant way. AI is already being, the last couple of years have not been working, but when I talk to my friends, they're telling me that they are using AI selectively to to lift quality standards. But they are doing it selectively, and because AI is very unpredictable. You can't trust AI to do a task alone, right? Because all sorts of numbers will come out. Some of all sorts of theories will be bandied by about by AI. Some of it which may not be acceptable. So we live in interesting times. Let's wait and see.
First, can you shift your chair? It is unpredictable times, definitely. And I like your point about the reporters being probably the last ones, who will still be the full human on the job rather than
Right.
having an AI reporter. In fact, I've seen people even attend functions wherein the host is actually an AI host. And they've said that it goes brilliantly. They don't have a problem with it. They can't even see the difference. So it's quite nuanced, and we're not really sure how this is going to go. So while we say that journalism can be a profitable and a good career, we also say that AI may play a very different role in the times to come. How do we help the youth navigate both the truths? Because both the truths are coexisting as of now.
Right. So I think, as I said, over the next 4 to 5 years, probably humans are safe, but maybe in the next decade, certainly it'll be a big challenge. So, uh, you know, today we have a lot of journalism schools, for instance, right? In the 90s, when I started out, there were only two or three. There was Jamia, there was Debian Institute of Communications, there were one or two others. Today, there are many, many journalism schools right now. So to navigate this new world, I think it makes sense to do a journalism course from one of the leading schools. As I said, there's Jamia, there's XIC, there's the Asian School of Journalism in Chennai, I think, which is doing pretty well. So you should join one of these schools and master your skill in one area at least, right? You should be a master of maybe editing. You should be a master of writing. You should be a master of rewriting. You should be well informed, right? Uh, so you should master your skills. You should hone your skills because getting better at your job is the only way you can really look at a long-term career in anything, right? At the moment, AI is very unpredictable. Humans still hold the key, but you have to raise your standards. And I think that will probably happen, right, in media also, as AI becomes an important dimension in the media world. Standards of journalism will probably also rise, right? Because the AI, by its very nature, it's artificial intelligence, right? It can make sense of information at a very rapid pace, and if you see TV, for instance, these days, many of the discussions are rambling and not of a high quality. Uh, they are already using AI to lift the standards of anchoring or lift the standards of reporting in various ways, right from sourcing content to doing the basic research. Uh, but the only way to really make sure that you don't get the pink slip and you have a long career is to make sure that you excel in whatever you do. Uh, Journalism courses uh, offer you a good way of getting a look into the world of journalism. That could be your first step into media. I began doing stock markets, to be honest. I had no background in business journalism, right? And I did not have solid background in economics. I had economics in the first 2 years of my graduation, but that was very basic journalism. Applied business journalism is very different from the economic theory that we read, right? So I had to sort of educate myself. I'm largely self-educated. And in 2001, as I said, there was this Ketan Parekh scam, and stock markets completely changed. Uh, a new product was announced, that was the derivatives, right? The derivatives market was born in 2001. At the time, derivatives market was not so liquid, but now it is very liquid and is more liquid than the cash market. So there were training classes for brokers at the BSc and the NSE. I attended those training classes. So when I began anchor, that was also one of the reasons, to be honest. That is also one of the reasons why CNBC made me an anchor overnight, because they realized that he understands derivatives market. He's been covering it from the ground, and he has sat with the brokers inside the BSc, and he's learned everything. So they made me immediately. They saw me as an expert. They saw me as an expert on derivatives, and so they immediately made me a markets anchor. So that's what I'm saying. You should have a mastery of some dimensions of journalism to begin with, and uh, initially you should try to get as much experience as possible in different dimensions. I mean, if you're an intern, you should look to uh, go in the direction you had always wanted to go, and experience real journalism. It's only after a year or two that you start to become better and better, and you start getting meatier roles, so to speak.
Right. So grow organically and learn fast and learn deep. I think that's something
That's
that
right.
you're constantly
That's right.
saying. Yeah. What about courage? I think a reporter, especially from what I hear from you, needs to have a lot of courage, especially when you have to pull out the difficult topics, the ones in which people are commercially eroding consumer wealth, and to bring that to the fore. Would you like to highlight that aspect too?
That's right. So when you talk about courage, it has to be kept in mind that a journalist has to be very sure of his facts, right? You have to be very sure of the facts, because when you put it out on air, when it is published, so many people are going to read it and react to it. So you can't rush into any story. You have to make sure that, particularly when you're breaking news, you have to make sure that you're absolutely spot on. And any negative story damages your credibility like nothing else. For instance, recently, if you remember, when the legendary actor Dharmen passed away, right? Many channels rushed into the story, and some declared that he had passed away even before, while he was still alive. That that sort of journalism damages credibility like nothing else. In fact, probably that is the reason why print has survived in India, right? Print is still doing pretty well in India, right? Compared to, let's say, the United States, where the print has has been dying, and with all the action has shifted to TV, and more than TV now, the action is shifting to digital journalism. The digital journalism is threatening to eat up TV and print, right? In India, if you see, uh, uh, print journalism is still fairly relevant, and it has held its ground. That is perhaps because people still see print as more reliable than TV news, right? Because in TV, there's a sense of immediacy. They'll break news fast, they'll get all their facts wrong. Many people, I'm one of those, I rely on newspapers the next morning to make a sense of what's been happening. Now, uh, today there are 50 to 100 maybe channels in Hindi, news channels in Hindi. There are much lesser English TV channels, maybe a dozen or so, maybe half a dozen or so. But all of them, there's serious competition to be the first to break it, and uh, uh, trust is something that suffers, right? Trust is something that I think is more associated with newspapers, and that is why newspapers remain relevant in India. Digital is again a different animal. Digital is also under a lot of pressure to break news, because digital is also a live medium, right? Any live medium is under more pressure, and digital is also of erratic quality in India at the moment. So that's why print has remained relevant. So if for many kids out there who want to become print journalists, it's still a viable career in India. In fact, I'll give you an anecdote here. A few years ago, in I think 2018, when I was in the US. It was my first trip to the US. I was visiting my sister-in-law, and my sister is a Wharton product, and her husband is a Chicago Booth School product. And so I was thinking that I'll reach the place and I'll find the New York Times there, and Washington Post there. And when I reached there, I discovered they don't take any newspapers, right? and they don't have cable news as well. TV was only meant for the kids to watch cartoons. So I was very curious, and I asked them, "How do you get your daily dose of news?" So they said, "Oh, what we do is we just open the phone and we look it up. We check out everything. We find out everything on our phone." So in the US, this was 7, 8 years ago, almost a decade ago, and print and TV journalism was in real danger in the US a few years ago. Uh, in India too, we would have gone down the same path, but I feel that quality of journalism in TV is highly erratic, and that has left the window open for print journalism.
That's a very interesting point you brought out. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about it because there's a higher credibility to the print and to paper. And I think Indians also love to touch the newspaper in the morning and sit down.
That's right. It's
I
a
think
habit
there
as well.
is, yeah, I think there's also a ritual involved
But
that
people
if,
in the US too would have had that habit. But as I said, in the US, it seems that print it has died much faster than what's happening in India. In fact, I remember reading last year that some of the print publications had actually increased their readership. So all in all, it's very interesting.
yeah, especially after COVID, wherein it had actually come to almost zero, then people renewed their subscriptions and made
That's right.
sure that they got their newspapers. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I think credibility is a big one. But you think the credibility of news per se has dropped in the last decade or so? I mean, I personally feel leaving a few places wherein I'll say, okay, this is credible. Otherwise, I find that the headline often misleading to the actual content of the news. You know, the headline is to get eyeballs, and then the content of the news is actually
That's right.
very
That's right.
different.
That's right. That has happened more in TV news than in print, I feel, because in print they still have some time to digest that news and and decide how to position it. In TV, because of the immediacy, they have to react to it spontaneously, immediately. We all know that TV news is certainly not taken very seriously by many people, right? People wait for some time before making up their minds, and I mean. Uh, we have big stars. We have like Arnab Goswami or Rajdeep Sardesai and others, Anjana Kashyap of Aastak. They are big stars, but broadly, TV news, I think, is not considered very cerebral, if I may say so. It's not considered very cerebral. And uh, I think AI could play a big role in improving standards in TV journalism, which at the moment are not very high. And because there's a constant competition for eyeballs, quality gets the go by very often.
Yeah. So
And yes,
that,
digital news. I mean, the digital world is also. Uh, is very unpredictable. I mean, only a few websites are really quality websites, right? So you can go to the New York Times, or you can go to the Mint website, or the Economic Times, but most of the other websites pay no attention to quality, as we all know, and that is certainly disturbing. And the standards must improve if media has to gain in credibility. Even though, and the irony is, even though standards have fallen, pay scales have improved in media, right? So people are still people are still making a lot of money in media. So senior journalists make a fair amount of money in media.
what is
So
fair
if you
amount?
Well, I think it would not be fair for me to talk about it openly because I know the pay scales but your monthly salaries run into a few lakhs now.
Right. So which is comparable to any corporate job or any so-called lucrative job.
Corporate jobs, I mean, if you just look at senior positions, the editor of a newspaper or a TV channel or a digital website will not be earning anywhere close to what let's say the CEO of a company would get. But still, the money is very good now. And I
Yeah.
know so many colleagues who are living a comfortable life from their earnings in media.
Sure. So what you're saying is you can earn a comfortable life. It's just that you can't be only chasing money. There has to be something else that's also driving you towards a
That's
journalism
right.
career.
You
Yeah.
you should have a passion for news. You should be committed to uh, making a difference the way the world is run. And You can do it, as Gandhi once said, right? That whatever we do is small, but we still must do it. Something like that he has said, right?
Yeah.
Whatever we do might be insignificant, but it is still important, and we do it.
Yeah.
And in media, you can certainly change policy decisions. It happens all the time, I think. As they say nowadays, right? That there should not be trial by media, because once the media latches onto an issue, it influences everyone. I think it influences everyone, right, from politicians to CEOs to even the judiciary, right? Because the media is the primary source of information. So certainly there is a you can change the way the world runs, but you have to be committed to facts, and you should know your subject pretty well.
One last question, huh? And you answer as much
Right.
as you want to. What are the pressures? Like, how about life, a daily life of a journalist, a young journalist?
Yes. So it's a high pressure job, right? So let's begin with digital journalism. Digital journalism is 24/7. There's no getting away from it. You can, file a story at any point in time. Work goes on through the night. TV too is 24/7. In TV, beginners very often get night shifts, for instance, right? Which are called the graveyard shifts. And I've done the night shifts for a couple of years, and it starts impacting your health as well. So it's a demanding profession, and there's no getting away from that. So only come if you have a general passion for news, right? If you have some sort of an activist streak, it helps, right? Because you're committed to a cause, you're committed to making a difference to the way the world is run. It is certainly a very demanding profession. Work hours can range from 10 to 14 hours a day. You could be put on night shifts. So all of that is there. But as you grow senior, after the first 4 to 5 years, life becomes, I think, relatively easier, because you will have a team of juniors reporting to you. As you become senior, your pay scales will also improve. The physical work that you do, that sort of you can lean on youngsters to do for you, right? Youngsters can share your physical workload. So life improves after the first 4 to 5 years. But the first 4 to 5 years in journalism is certainly demanding. I think that holds for any profession, right? Learning by its very nature is not fun, right? Because you're all the time being tested, you're all the time being pulled out of your comfort zone. It's only when you have mastered your craft to an extent that you really start enjoying work, right? That's why, I mean, if you see in cricket, uh, uh, batsmen blossom around the age of 27 or 28. All the hard work that they do over the years, that starts rewarding them by when they are around 28 or 30. So in the first few years when you're learning, you'll be given a lot of work. You'll be made to work report at odd hours. So you have to retain your passion for news. And not everybody becomes a star journalist. Not everybody becomes a Rajdeep Sardesai or an Arnab Goswami. But the work can still give you a lot of satisfaction. And I honestly feel that even the star anchors are hugely overrated, because they have to depend on a team of they have to depend on a team which is working behind the scenes to make it all happen. So it's tough initially, but gets better with time.
Thanks so much. Any other tips that you would like to share before we close for budding, senior, whichever section of journalism or media?
Yes. So one thing that gets overlooked, and one thing that I didn't know certainly when I was starting out, was that journalism also moves. Media companies also moves on personal relations, right? You need godfathers. You need godfathers everywhere. In media too, you need godfathers. Remember, you have to be on good relations. You need to have excellent relations with your bosses, because it's a small industry. People move from one channel to the other, one newspaper to the other, one digital website to the other. Very often they take the entire team with them, right? They take the core team with them. So if you want to do well, you need to have a good, solid equation with the bosses you are working for.
If you enjoyed this video, the Life with Their series, and found it informative, do share, like, and subscribe to our channel for more updates. See you next time.